Hi, I'm Steve Catronio.
And I'm Ron Pardini from CIFX.com. And in this workshop, we're going to show you mask augmentation, where we take a mask such as this, and using our special effects techniques and painting techniques, we can create other creations like these.
But for this workshop, we're going to show you how to take an inexpensive store-bought mask such as this and apply the same techniques that we teach you to create works of art such as these.
For this workshop, you're going to need at least one generic latex rubber mask. You're going to need some sort of a head form, whether it's a styrofoam form such as this or something that you create yourself that you can use to display your mask on and to actually work on your mask. You'll need some liquid latex, and then you will need some safety gear such as eyewear and latex gloves. If you would like to add additional things to your mask, such as teeth or eyes, you will have to purchase those separately. You will need some type of acrylic paints, whether it be artistic paints such as these or even house paints will work, as long as they are water-based. We'll need cotton balls and toilet paper, paper towels, and any kind of fabric that you have. It can be any color of fabric as long as it's absorbent so that latex will soak into it. You will need several chip brushes, which are the disposable cheap chip brushes that you can get in any hardware store, and you probably will want at least one good artistic brush. We recommend you using some sort of super glue, or perhaps, in this case, craft glues or even 5-minute epoxies for some of the steps that are involved. You'll definitely need a pair of scissors. You will need some matte finish spray paint. If you'd like to make the project go faster, you can use a normal hair dryer.
Okay, well, we're going to get started right off the bat here with augmenting masks. We've showed you some of the supplies and everything you need to know to get going, and now we're going to get you into starting to alter these masks and making them look different. We're going to start you off with one of the most basic things you can do to alter these masks. What we have here is basically just an inexpensive little store-bought mask. We tried to pick something, kind of generic that's sort of skull-like. And we're going to show you some different techniques today to make a lot of different looks out of this mask. This one here is going to be really simple. We're going to just add some hair and some paint to it to give it a little bit different look from the other mask. What we're going to start out with is some just basic synthetic store-bought wig hair. You can find this at most any wig stores, beauty supply stores, and it doesn't always come in separate strands like this. Sometimes you have to actually buy like a little Halloween wig or a wig and cut it off, which works fine. We were able to find it in these nice long strands, so that's what we're going to be using today. And what we're going to start out with is just applying the synthetic hair with the liquid latex that we showed you. And we're just going to be using some little inexpensive chip brushes, which you don't want to be using really expensive paint brushes and stuff. You're going to be throwing these away at the end of the day because the latex can never get cleaned out of these. It dries and turns into rubber. So seriously, just get little throwaway brushes. And what we're going to start doing is we're going to put on a what we call a little tack coat. And this is just like a first little layer of latex that we're going to paint in the area where we're going to apply the hair. Get a little latex on your brush. And just paint a good amount. You don't want it dripping down the front of the face, but just kind of brush a little bit. We're going to kind of keep the hair out of the forehead area and off the face and stuff. And we're just going to kind of line the edge of this mask. It's just a half mask, but we're going to pull the hair up and back a little bit and really fill it in and give this kind of a nice head of hair here. Always add more hair than you need at first, because you can always go back and trim it and cut it and style it, and we're going to show you some other techniques you can do with it where you can take latex and kind of gunk it up and make it look nasty. So we're going to give it kind of a nice head of hair here at first. So I'm just kind of brushing down both sides across the top of the skull here, down the other sides, and I'm not going to go past the temple area here. I'm going to stop right at about the corner of the eyes where the temples are. And this is going to be a coat that is going to allow our hair and latex to kind of stick to, adhere to. So sometimes these store-bought masks have some paint and sealers and different things on them, and it's always good to give it just a little tack coat of latex to give your buildup something to stick to. So what you want to do is whenever you're cutting the hair off the wigs, or when you have these strands of hair, give yourself a nice flat edge. We have a lot of loose ends here and stuff like that. We always like to cut a nice straight edge on it. And then you're going to take the ends of the hair, and you could either dip them in the latex, or you could take a brush and brush some latex onto them, whatever technique you guys prefer. Just make sure you got some latex really soaked in there. And then you're going to start at the back of the mask and work your way forward. And the reason you do this is because the hair is always going to be kind of layering back. If you start at the front and you layer it back, then you have to fit all the rest of the hair underneath it. So it's always important to kind of start at the back and work your way forward. The same applies to starting at the bottom and working your way up at the top. If you start at the top and it's laying down, you have to again fit your hair underneath it. So we're going to go ahead and start applying this kind of roughly at the temple area here. And I'll spin this so you can see that there. And I'm just kind of pushing those ends into the tack coat that we added on there. And I'm kind of just pushing them around a little bit, kind of smearing them up the side of the head, so that's not just one big clump in one spot. You can kind of spread them around a little bit there. So I'm going to start with that right there, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab another bunch of hair here, and we're just going to kind of keep moving around this and layering this hair on. It's going to go pretty quick here, and pretty soon we're going to have a nice full head of hair, probably more than we even want on this mask. But again, it's just a personal preference thing, however you want the hair to look. We'll probably go back and maybe trim it up a little bit and add some more latex into it in a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit more here to the top. And for Halloween masks, we found a lot of times in movies and for nice props and things like that, they have people going in making custom wigs and punching hairs and stuff. And we found that for Halloween masks, this is effective enough just to use the latex and adding the hair on with that. Because once you add the paint and the latex dries and you're running around in the dark, people are screaming and everything, it's really a waste of time to sit there and hand punch all the hairs by hand. And this way is a really quick, easy way for it. And the other good thing about adding hair with latex is it's really durable. The hair that's punched in by hand actually can be pulled out very easily, where this stuff is completely embedded in this latex that's dried to your mask. And I mean, you could yank this stuff all day long and it's not going to pull out of your mask. So when you're dealing with a lot of actors and people running around, it's going to be real durable for you. Okay, so we're moving right along here with the hair process, and we started layering the hair back, kind of like what we talked about, and we've got the majority of the head covered here. And again, we're trying to give it a very natural, realistic look, as far as the direction that the hair is growing, which is another important reason why to kind of layer it back in the direction we were talking about. If you had it just all kind of hanging off the front, that's not how hair really naturally grows. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're doing this. Now the next step we're going to do here is we're going to take some shorter hairs, and we're just going to dress up the front edge a little bit, because the front edge where you're packing down all this latex and everything, it can get kind of jumbled up and everything. Now the latex will dry for the most part pretty clear, and the paint's going to help hide that a lot anyway. But what we like to do sometimes is just take some shorter hairs, maybe just a couple inches long, 3-4 inches long. Again, trim those nice and square. And then we're just going to do a little latex on these guys. Just kind of dab the ends up a little bit here. Not totally soak them all crazy like we did before. And we're just going to kind of go in just right down at the edge there and just kind of tap those down. And those will sort of mask out those big matted areas of latex there that we've added. So we're going to go ahead and you can kind of push it down into those areas, and that latex will help lock in those. And then you're just left with a nice little fine edge there. And we're going to do those in a couple spots. Now, you can do a lot more with the hair than what we've showed you here. I mean, again, you can do whatever your imagination comes up with. I mean, you can do tufts of hair hanging off the side. You can really get creative, and you can take little pieces of hair like this and latex them up above and actually create some eyebrows. You can do beards and goatees on these. I mean, you can really go crazy with these. But for this video, we're just going to show you some simple applications here. Just the hair on the head, and then some paint techniques to show you how we can tie that all in then and make it look really good. So again, I'm just getting a little latex on the ends of these guys. And I'm going to move over here and mask out this edge a little bit more. And you don't have to do this everywhere. I mean, the cool thing is we're making monsters here. There's really no right or wrong, you know. You can kind of go nuts with them, and if their hair's all matted and nasty looking, it's not a big deal. We just want to show you what you can do if you want to, you know, clean these up a little and make them look nicer and stuff. And then it's really up to you to decide how you want it to look. So I'm just going to add it actually in only just a couple more spots here, because he is a little zombie guy, and I think he looks kind of cool with that messed up hair. So, and again, when I'm adding these, I'm still kind of looking at the direction that the hair is flowing and trying to keep it going with the same direction as the rest of the hair. Maybe spread them out and blend them a little bit. There we go, starting to get there. Now I'm going to hit the other side here just a little bit. So basically all I'm going to do now is take these short hairs and mimic what I just did on this side over on this side. Then we'll go ahead and let that completely dry up. And it's very important that you let the latex completely dry before you get to the painting stage. Because if you go in and you start pushing a paintbrush around on this and stippling and getting really rough with it, you can ruin all the work you just did. Because if the latex wet, the latex is wet, you can push the hair right away and knock it off and everything. So you want to make sure that the latex is fully cured and totally dry before you start any of the painting. And one of the ways to know is you might even notice already some of the discoloring, how it's kind of yellowing out. Latex starts to yellow out as it dries. And you can also just feel it, you know, touch it, make sure there's no wet spots and everything left on it. And just make sure it's fully dry before you get to that paint stage. So we're going to go ahead and finish up this side, and then we'll show you a few little paint techniques to go ahead and change up his appearance. Okay, so now our hair is all applied to our mask, and the latex is completely dry, and now we're going to begin the painting process. We're going to start you with the basics here, and all we're going to do is just a little bit of color on this mask to show you just what some subtle changes can do to really make this mask look different. So all we're going to do on this one is mix up a brown wash type of color and apply it, and then do kind of a rub down on it to take off the highlights and stuff. So it'll leave kind of the brown paint in the deep spots and give us kind of a nice contrast there, and just look a little bit different from the way the mask looked originally. We're dealing with latex, which is water-based material, so we're going to be using a water-based paint in it. You'd never want to use an oil-based paint with it. So anything like acrylics and airbrush paints and things like that will work great for mixing with the latex. And what we do is we mix the acrylic paints with the latex, because the latex actually bonds to the latex mask. And that's a nice little trick to remember, because a lot of paints, when you paint them on a mask, a Halloween mask, when they dry, they can actually crack, they don't flex. And when your mask is bending and getting taken off and on all night, you don't want your paint cracking and flaking off. So that's the reason we like to mix our paint into the latex. It'll dry on there and become like this nice layer on there that'll never peel off. So what we're going to show you right now is just a little mixing technique, and we're going to mix up some colors here. Now when you're mixing up latex paint, what you want to do is you always want to mix your color first. And the reason for that is the latex, which is the base of what we're making, is kind of a whitish, off-white color. And if you put the off-white color in the cup first and then add your paints to that, it's not going to be the true color that you want, because you're actually like adding a white to the color that you're mixing. So if you mix your colors first and then add the latex to it, what happens is once the latex dries, remember the latex dries kind of clear, all that's going to show through is the original color that you mixed. And we'll show you how that works. So even when you're applying the paint, once you have it all mixed, it's going to look lighter than it will when it actually finally dries. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use a couple of airbrush acrylic paints. They're just water-based. You can get them at almost any little hobby store or good craft store. And we're going to take some dark brown and some beige brown and just kind of mix them together. And when you're mixing a latex-based paint for a mask, you want to use, it's an approximation, but about 20% paint to 80% latex, give or take a little bit. So what we're gonna do here is add probably just a couple drops of the dark brown into a cup. We're gonna mix a little bit of beige in there just to kind of lighten it up a little bit. And again, you know, the color is completely up to you. I'm just kind of mixing a random little brown color for a wash here. It might be kind of dark, but it'll work for what we're doing. Again, I'm mixing the color first. I'm gonna take a look at it, test it, make sure I'm happy with the color, and then I'll go ahead and add the latex in here. So I think we got a pretty decent little brown color. It's pretty dark, but I think it's gonna work okay for what we're doing. Because again, we really wanna kind of change the appearance of this guy. And this is just a wash to kind of get in all the dark spots. We'll probably do a little bit of stippling on it, and we'll still allow, you know, a lot of the color to show through. So now that I've got a color mixed here, I'm gonna go ahead and add the 80% latex. Now again, it's not a set in stone ratio, it's just kind of a guideline for you. And you guys can, you know, you're gonna have to probably do some testing and stuff till you get the right consistency, but it is about 80% to 20%. So I think I got about the right amount in there. And I'm gonna go ahead and mix it all together now and make sure you got it really thoroughly mixed. Scrape the bottom and the sides really well. And now you're gonna see that the color has lightened up considerably from what we originally started. It's much lighter because we've added this white latex into it. And that's exactly why we say to go ahead and start with your color first, because it definitely changes the appearance of it. So now that we're all mixed up here, so to speak, we're gonna go ahead and start adding the color to the mask. So again, we're just gonna be using some chip brushes here, and we're gonna be really liberal with the amount of color we put on here. I'm gonna basically coat this thing very heavy, down in all the deep spots, in all the little crevices and cracks. And what I'm gonna do is I've got a couple paint rags here. One of them is slightly moistened, and the other one is dry. And sometimes if it starts to dry on you, you can use the little moist rag to kind of take off some of the high points and stuff like that. Because what we're going to be achieving is once we put the color on there, by doing the wipe, as we wipe off paint, we're actually creating all the highlights again. So it's going to be a little process here where we take some paint, and you could go right into the roots of the hair, just start dabbing it in there, right over all that color. Totally coating this mask. And what we like to do, I mean, especially when you're dealing with a lot of heat, if it's a hot day out and stuff, do one area at a time. Don't cover the entire mask, because if it dries up on you, then your whole mask is going to be completely coated like this. And a big part of the process is you want to be able to wipe some of the color away. So now what I'm going to do here, I've got the forehead kind of coated. I'm actually going to start wiping some of this color off. I don't want to wipe it all off. I'm just trying to hit kind of the high points and leaving some of that color on the forehead there. And you can see how it kind of dirtied it up. It left some kind of shadowing in the wrinkles on the forehead and everything. And I'm going to leave a lot of the brown kind of gunked up toward the edges of the hair there. And it kind of masks out the hair a little bit where you attached it. I'm going to dab just a little bit color. It kind of puddled a little bit on the edge there. So I'm going to dab out a tiny bit of it. There we go. And already it's kind of dirtying it up, and you can kind of see how it's definitely shadowing the deeper portions of the mask. So I'm going to show you, I'll show you a little bit down here. On the nose and the mouth here, we have all these nice little wrinkles and everything in between the teeth. And we have these nice creases and everything. Those are great places for the paint to get trapped. So again, I'm going to go ahead and put a nice amount of the brown paint, really kind of gob it into all those little cracks and crevices. Get it down in the creases here. I'll just kind of do this side of the face for you, kind of take a look at. So I'm really totally covering this mask with paint very heavily. And now I'm going to go back and get my rag here again. I'm going to start kind of wiping across it. Again, being kind of careful just to kind of pick up the paint on the high points. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little bit. I'm going to go across the teeth there a little kind of puddled a little bit in the nose, so I'm going to get a little bit out of the nose there. So there we go. So I'm thinking that's looking pretty good there. He's starting to look kind of dirty and grungy. And you can again see, if you take a look here, you can see all the shadowing that's going on now between the teeth with the brown that we just put in, and you can see how we wiped away the highlights there, and you guys can see how that looks. And again, once this dries up, it's going to be quite a bit darker. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to finish the rest of the mask here doing the same process, gobbing the paint on, wiping it away, and creating those shadows and highlights. Okay, so here is the finished mask with the basic augmentation. This is just with the hair, and now with your finished wash coat of paint, and you can see the just the subtle difference it adds just with the hair and with the little brown paint staying down in the deep spots and you wiping off the highlights. It just gives it a different appearance. As you can see here, we'll show you a comparison between, this is the original store-bought mask, and then this is what we've done now to alter it. And it's subtle, but it's definitely a different look. And it's a good starting point, and that's some of the basic techniques there for augmenting masks, how you can just take something like this and turn it into this and have a couple different looks very easily with these inexpensive store-bought masks. Okay, so here are our final creations. Again, utilizing some simple techniques and some inexpensive, readily available products from stores, you can go ahead and create amazing creatures like these from simple store-bought masks like these.